with a bit of advice. I'm not really very good at giving out advice. I give an example of how. I was in a supermarket and I saw this young couple wandering round, and the girl said to her boyfriend, "Have we got everything?" And he said, "I think so." And I looked in their basket and all they had was a bottle of rosé and a cucumber. And I just thought, there's no way they've got everything else they need in for a salad. And what I should have said is, lube, love. That's what you need. Lube. But I didn't. Just got to learn the hard way. But I started buying women's magazines. I quite like women's magazines. And I bought one recently because on the front cover it said that some female celebrities had put weight on and that they were now curvaceous. I thought, let's have a look and just see how curvaceous they are. So I flicked through, and the fattest woman in there, it said that she had ballooned. I repeat, she had ballooned to a size 12. Size 12. I give my right arm to be a size 12. My right arm might be a size 12. But I think I'd quite like an animal at home. I think that would make the place feel a little bit more sort of cosy. Give us a cheer if you've got a pet at home. There's loads of you. See, I'd quite like a cat. If I could have any animal, I'd probably have a cat. But I can't have a cat because my boyfriend's allergic to cats, so I can't have one. Well, precisely, Flower. We'll split up and that'll sort it out. Most people don't have something to look forward to at the end of a relationship. I can't wait till he starts fucking other women. I'm off to the pet shop, won't you? But if I did get an animal, I'd have to be careful, because whenever I had animals as a child, I always loved them a little bit too much. There's a name for people like me. It's a hamster squeezer. Look at his little face. When I was about 7, I had a little dog and I loved it so much. Have you ever stroked a dog so hard you could see the whites of its eyes? Then when you stroke along its back, its little back legs buckle because of the pressure. I do worry about my boyfriend. Because I love him so much. Love him so much. No. Look at his little face. Is Spunk supposed to be red? No. That's a great reaction. The women are laughing and the blokes are going, "Don't do that, that's not fucking funny." Now is probably quite a good time to tell you that I'm a lot ruder than I am on the telly. So brace yourselves. I like going shopping, but I don't find shopping very relaxing. What normally happens is I go in a shop that I like, I try on some clothes that I like, most of them won't fit, and I walk out shouting something along the lines of, "Oh, so I'm an 18 in here. Well, fuck off." And then I have to go and buy a handbag to calm down. Because you're never too fat for a handbag. Although these days they've got those ones that have just got the short straps and they just go right under your arm. I think it's just a matter of time before I have to get buttered out of a handbag. And I know what I'm talking about as well, because I was once cut out of a dress in monsoon. That wasn't my favourite day. The lady said, "I'll just go and get the scissors." "Why are you crying?" "Because I'm going to have to wear this dress for the rest of my natural life and I don't even know if I fucking like it. But I have developed, people call it a muffin top if it hangs over your jeans, don't they? A muffin top. I don't really like that name, so I've started calling mine my cake shelf. It's nicer, isn't it? Because it sounds like a good place to keep your cake. Somebody said to me, "Are you pregnant?" I said, "Only if I've been fucked by Mr. Kipling." And yes, it was exceedingly good. But I tend not to see my friends of an evening because I work most nights. So I see my friends, we go out for lunch, and I really like it. I like going out for lunch with my friends. Went out with one of my friends, she's lovely, but she's a bit of a moaner. Went out for a perfectly nice meal, she complained about the food, so we had to send the food back. And I made some hilarious remark about how the chef's now going to go and wank in a soup. She came out with the best answer ever. She just went, "Oh, good, I haven't had sex in ages." I thought, surely she doesn't think think that merely ingesting spunk is the same as having actual sex. If only it was that straightforward. You know, when you can't really be bothered, just bung it in a smoothie, I'll have it later on. Could be one of me 5 a day. But I've discovered the most horrific way you know you've put weight on. I don't think this is commonly known, so I feel like I should sort of spread the word. This happened to me in January, and it is genuinely upsetting. Where my boyfriend lives is a block of flats, and round the back of the block of flats is a car park. In order to get into the car park, you have to go through like a barrier, like an arm that lifts up when it senses a car is near. I mean, I was carrying 2 big bags of shopping, but it still thought I was a Peugeot 206. But I've been buying myself some new knickers recently. I love it. Whenever I buy knickers, I always buy daft knickers. So they've always got like cakes or cats or stars or hearts or slogans, that sort of thing. Generally from a supermarket, occasionally from Marks and Spencer's, if they've got an offer on. 3 for a tenner. Try and fucking stop us. But one of the supermarkets has recently had a range of superhero knickers. And they're awesome. And I've got enough pairs now that I can be invincible for 5 days in a row. And I rang my sister because I thought she'll want to know about these. And she said, well, what sort of thing have they got on? And I said, I've got some with Wonder Woman on and some with She-Ra on. And there was a little pause and she went, the footballer. I love that she thinks I've got knickers with Alan Shearer's face on. But I love a slogan on a knicker. I love a slogan on a knicker. The best slogan I ever had, it said, I do anything for love, and on the back, but I won't do that. I mean, it was written on in biro, but still. But in this job, I tend to travel mostly around the UK. I'm from a place called South Shields originally. Have we got any North Easterners in? Yay! Excellent, the loud women, hello. No, welcome, thank you very much for coming. Because I'm from South Shields, but I actually live in Manchester now, and I mostly work around the UK. Occasionally I get to go abroad. I went to Australia last year for the Melbourne Comedy Festival, which was great. It was great until it came time to coming home, when because of the fucking volcano, got stranded for an extra week, and you find you don't get any sympathy of your friends if you tell them you are stranded for an extra week. My friend said, you are stranded for an extra week in Australia. Well, boo fucking who? I said, yes, but listen to the word that you're using. It's stranded. It's not a good word, is it? You could be stranded on the end of Brad Pitt's cock and you'd want to go home eventually. I mean, after a week or so, obviously. For snacks, if nothing else. I think that explains why his girlfriends are always so skinny. Doesn't provide enough snacks. But while I was in Australia, I got a phone call from the fraud department of my credit card company inquiring why I was spending quite so much on my credit card. She said, can I check a couple of transactions with you? And I said, of course you can. The first one was a cash point withdrawal, and I had withdrawn the money, so that was all above board. The second one, she said, you spent £102 in a place called Holt's. And I went, yeah, that's right. It's a chocolate shop. And she went, £102? And I went, yeah, it was for presents. For me. Because I was nowhere near Brad Pitt's cock. But a friend of mine... actually, no, I'm not going to call him that. It's not appropriate. I'm going to call him a male acquaintance. Let's do that. A male acquaintance of mine with whom I have never had a dalliance said to me, you know what? If you lost a couple of stone... I said, the rest of this better be a fucking equation. If you lost a couple of stone, we could probably go out. I said, only if the couple of stone I lost was me fucking head. My nickname is the cake pigeon. It's whenever I walk past a cake shop, whenever I press myself up against a cake shop, I go, ooh. And because I talk about cakes and puddings on stage, sometimes people bring cakes and puddings to shows for me, which is lovely, but can sometimes be a little bit weird. So a lady came up to me a few months ago at the end of the show. She handed me a small round fruitcake and she said, "This is for you." And I said, "That's lovely, thank you very much. What a nice thing to do." And she said, "I'm sorry, it's just that. But it's all we had in." I said, "Have you been looking through your cupboards? It's not the fucking Harvest Festival, pet. You bought a ticket, you can just come to the show." Which really pissed off the woman behind her who was standing with a tin of fucking peaches.